Supreme Commander Kexith of the Zaxri Expeditionary Fleet stood before the massive holographic display, his 4 eyes narrowed at the peculiar reading. The bridge of his flagship hummed with the subtle vibration of advanced quantum engines, a testament to his civilization's technological superiority. 3 star systems had fallen before their might in the past cycle, their primitive energy weapons barely scratching the Zaxri's adaptive shields. Analysis, he commanded, mandibles clicking with irritation at this unexpected delay. Senior Sensor Officer Vexri manipulated her control interface, sending streams of data across the display. Unknown vessel, Supreme Commander, approximately 300 meters in length. Hull composition appears to be primitive alloys. No energy shields detected. No quantum signatures. No fusion emissions. She paused, confusion evident in her harmonics. They appear to be using chemical propulsion. A ripple of amusement passed through the bridge crew. Chemical propulsion. In this age of quantum drives and dark energy matrices. Magnification, Kexth ordered, his initial annoyance giving way to curiosity. The hologram shifted, revealing a dark shape against the star field. The vessel's design was unlike anything in their database, angular, utilitarian, with no apparent concern for aesthetic appeal. Exposed weapon hardpoints dotted its hull, carrying what appeared to be simple projectile launchers. Inside the U.S. Barracuda's Combat Information Center, Captain Amanda Stone watched the alien flagship's scanning beams wash harmlessly across their quantum absorption hull. The CIC was silent except for the soft breathing of her crew and the occasional whisper of status updates. No electronic emissions, no active sensors, just passive systems and Mark I eyeballs, as her old academy instructor used to say. Multiple targeting locks from the alien fleet, Lieutenant James Rodriguez reported in a hushed tone, his fingers dancing across his darkened console. The displays were dimmed to near invisibility, preserving the crew's night vision. They're not even trying to hide their sensor emissions. Reading 17 capital ships, 34 escorts. Stone allowed herself a small smile. The Zaxri's overconfidence was exactly what O&I had predicted. Time to intercept at their current vector. 37 minutes, assuming they maintain course and speed, Navigation Officer Kyle Mitchell responded. We're dead center in their path, Captain. They'll have to adjust course or run right into us. Commander Michael Cooper, Stone's XO, leaned close to her station. They're probably expecting us to panic and run, he whispered. First contact protocols suggest we should be broadcasting surrender terms right about now. Let them think that, Stone replied, her voice steady. Status of the weapon pods. All pods reading green, Rodriguez confirmed. Targeting solutions updated. Cold launch systems primed. Hull temperature holding at 2.7 Kelvin above background radiation. Chief Engineer Jessica Taylor's voice came through Stone's neural implant, maintaining communications without radio emissions. Heat sinks are managing the load, Captain. We can maintain this temperature profile for another 6 hours before we need to dump excess energy. On the Zaxri flagship, Supreme Commander Kexith had made his decision. Deploy the first contact squadron. Standard subjugation protocols. He gestured dismissively at the image of the primitive vessel. Their technology level suggests they haven't even achieved unified planetary governance. Probably an early exploration vessel that strayed too far from their home system. Supreme Commander, Vexri interjected. The vessel's position. It's directly in our fleet's path. The probability of this being a random encounter is. They are primitives, Kex cut her off. Their positioning is irrelevant. They likely don't even understand proper void space tactics. Proceed with the operation. As the Zaxri fleet adjusted formation, Captain Stone watched their movements with predatory focus. Everything was proceeding exactly as the Strategic Operations Division had predicted. The aliens' arrogance, their reliance on energy weapons, their dismissal of primitive technology. It all played into humanity's carefully crafted strategy. Tactical, she whispered, designate firing solutions. Priority targets are their sensor nodes and communication arrays. Time on target. Mark. Solutions locked. Rodriguez confirmed. Pods 1 through 12, synchronized for simultaneous cold launch. Time to optimal firing position. 3 minutes, 17 seconds. The trap was set. Humanity's first contact with the Zaxxery would teach them a lesson about underestimating primitive technology, assuming any of them survived to learn from it. The Zaxxery First Contact Squadron cut through the void, their energy shields casting a purple luminescence against the darkness of space. Commander Lixta stood proudly on the bridge of the lead frigate, the Eternal Light, watching as they approached the primitive vessel. Their sensors painted a clearer picture now. No fusion core, no quantum manifolds, not even basic gravitic protection. Just chemical thrusters and what appeared to be primitive projectile weapons. Begin standard first contact protocols, Lixta ordered. Broadcast surrender demands on all known frequency bands. Add the basic mathematical sequence for good measure. They might not even have proper translation software. Inside the U.S. Barracuda CIC, Lieutenant Rodriguez watched the alien frigate's approach on his passive sensors. Target is broadcasting on multiple bands, Captain. Their electronic emissions are lighting them up like a Christmas tree. Captain Stone nodded, her face illuminated by the dim glow of her tactical display. Status of the kinetic packages. Pods 1 through 4 are in optimal firing position. Rodriguez reported. Cold gas system readings nominal. No detection signature above background radiation. Commander Cooper studied the alien vessel's approach vector. They're not even running evasive patterns. No point defense systems active. Their shields are steady state rather than adaptive. He shook his head. They really don't see us as a threat. Time to weapons release. Stone asked. Mark 2 minutes, Rodriguez responded. First wave of kinetic kill vehicles will cross their projected flight path in 2 minutes, 17 seconds. Second wave follows 30 seconds later. On the Eternal Light, the sensor officer reported with growing frustration. Commander, the primitive vessel is not responding to any broadcasts. They appear to be completely powered down. He adjusted his instruments. Wait, detecting minimal temperature variation. They're slightly colder than the surrounding space. Lixta clicked his mandibles dismissively. Probably a malfunction in their environmental systems. These primitives barely understand basic void survival principles. Maintain course and prepare for forced docking procedures. Chief Engineer Taylor's voice came through Stone's neural link. Heat sinks at maximum capacity, Captain. Ready to initiate dump sequence on your mark. Weapons release in 5. Rodriguez counted down. 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark. The Barracuda shuddered almost imperceptibly as magnetic clamps released 4 pods from its hull. Cold gas thrusters, invisible to thermal sensors, adjusted their trajectory with microscopic precision. Each pod contained 6 tungsten rods, 3 meters long and guided by minimal electronic systems to maintain their near-light velocity. First wave away, Rodriguez reported. Clean separation. No detectable emissions. Commander Lixta was studying the tactical display when his sensor officer suddenly screamed. Multiple contacts. High-velocity objects on intersect course. Impossible, Lixta began. Their weapons air. The first wave of kinetic kill vehicles struck the Eternal Light at 0.15 times the speed of light. At that velocity, the tungsten rods didn't need explosive payloads. Pure kinetic energy transformed them into weapons more devastating than tactical nuclear devices. The frigate's energy shields, designed to deflect plasma and laser fire, might as well have been soap bubbles. The rods punched through the vessel from bow to stern, their passage turning hull material into plasma through sheer friction. Secondary explosions bloomed silently as the ship's atmospheric containment failed. The Eternal Light split apart like a ripe fruit, its broken halves tumbling into the void. Target eliminated, Rodriguez reported calmly. Second wave impacting their sensor array in 3, 2, 1. The remaining tungsten rods streaked through space where the Eternal Light's long-range sensors had been, ensuring no tactical data about the attack would reach the main fleet. On the Zaxri flagship, Supreme Commander Kexth watched in horror as the first contact squadron signals went dead. The Eternal Light's destruction had been so complete, so sudden, that they hadn't even had time to transmit a distress call. "Get me a visual," he roared. "Where did those projectiles come from?" "Unknown, Supreme Commander," Vexri reported, her voice shaking. "No energy signatures detected, no propulsion flares, no weapon emissions. They just appeared." Captain Stone watched the chaos unfold on her tactical display. Status of heat sinks. "Beginning dump sequence now," Taylor reported. "Venting excess thermal energy while their sensors are disrupted by the debris field." "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Stone ordered. "Let's remind them why humanity's warships are built to embrace the darkness of space itself." Chaos erupted across the Zaxri fleet as the destruction of the Eternal Light registered on their sensors. Supreme Commander Kexth's flagship, the Infinite Wisdom, moved to battle stations, its powerful engines flaring bright against the void as it took up an aggressive posture. "Multiple signatures," Sensor Officer Vexri called out, her voice tight with strain. "Energy readings at coordinates Mark 7-3. No, Mark 8-9. They're gone." She manipulated her controls frantically. "Supreme Commander, I cannot maintain a lock on the human vessel. It's as if it simply disappears between sensor suites." Chief Engineer Jessica Taylor monitored the Barracuda's systems with methodical precision. The ship's heat sinks were performing exactly as designed, absorbing their thermal signature until they matched the background temperature of space itself. "Temperature differential holding at 0.3 Kelvin, Captain. We're colder than the void around us." Captain Stone studied the tactical display, watching the alien fleet's frantic maneuvering. "Status of the delayed action mines, Lieutenant Rodriguez. All 20 mines deployed and dormant, Captain. Current drift patterns match local debris fields perfectly." Rodriguez allowed himself a small grin. "They look just like chunks of their own destroyed frigate. The Zaxri are actually moving closer to them while trying to establish a search pattern." The Infinite Wisdom's bridge was awash in the glow of emergency lighting as Kexth demanded answers. How can they mask their engine signature? Every ship needs to dump excess heat. "Supreme Commander," his chief engineer replied, mandibles clicking nervously. "We're detecting no fusion emissions, no quantum wake. They appear to be using some form of chemical propulsion system, but it's..." He paused, struggling with the concept. "It's incredibly efficient. Their heat signature is nearly impossible to distinguish from background radiation." Commander Cooper leaned close to Captain Stone's station. "They're spreading out their formation, trying to cast a wider sensor net, exactly as predicted by tactical analysis." Stone nodded. "Time to initiate Phase 2. Optimal positioning in 30 seconds, Rodriguez confirmed. The closest Zaxri vessel will pass within 100 meters of Mine Cluster 3 in approximately 45 seconds. On the Infinite Wisdom, a junior sensor officer suddenly straightened. "Supreme Commander, I'm detecting something. Debris from the Eternal Light is moving against the projected drift patterns." "Impossible," Vexri snapped. "Space debris doesn't." The first mine activated, its dormant surface suddenly revealing sophisticated targeting sensors. The Zaxri escort vessel never had time to react as the device launched its payload of microscopic tungsten fragments at point-blank range. The cloud of hypervelocity particles shredded the ship's sensor arrays and communication equipment, leaving it effectively blind and mute. "Mine detonation confirmed," Rodriguez reported. "Target's external sensors destroyed." Moving to Phase 2 of the attack pattern. The Barracuda's cold gas thrusters fired in perfect silence, adjusting the ship's position with movements so subtle they were practically invisible. Lieutenant Rodriguez's fingers danced across his console as he activated the ship's primary weapon systems. "Forward rail batteries showing green," he announced. "Solution plotted for their command and control node." The disabled Zaxri vessel drifted helplessly, its crew struggling to restore basic systems. They never saw the Barracuda emerge from the darkness behind them. The human ship's rail batteries spoke in perfect silence, launching depleted uranium shells at a fraction of light speed. The kinetic impacts severed the alien vessel's spine, splitting it into 3 dying segments. "By the eternal void," Kexth whispered, watching another ship die. "They're not just using primitive weapons. They're hunting us, using our own assumptions against us." Captain Stone watched the alien fleet's increasingly erratic movements with predatory satisfaction. Status of remaining mines. 18 mines still in optimal positions, Rodriguez reported. The Zaxrid fleet's evasive maneuvers are actually improving our targeting solutions. They're backing themselves into a corner, Captain. Just as the psychology division predicted, Cooper noted. They're used to energy weapons and shields. This kind of warfare, silent, invisible, using space itself as a weapon. It goes against everything they understand. "Prepare for next attack run," Stone ordered. "Let's remind them why humanity chose to perfect the art of stealth rather than rely on brute force. Sometimes the deadliest predator is the one you never see coming." Supreme Commander Kexith stood before his gathered ship commanders, their holographic forms flickering in the tactical display. 3 hours of combat had cost them 5 ships, with 3 more crippled beyond repair. The human vessel remained an invisible phantom, striking without warning and vanishing before they could respond. "Deploy in sphere formation Delta," Kexth ordered, his voice harsh with suppressed rage. "Maximum sensor coverage. No blind spots. No sensor shadows. They cannot hide from all of us at once." Navigation Officer Kyle Mitchell studied the shifting patterns of the alien fleet on the Barracuda's passive sensors. "They're trying to box us in, Captain, establishing overlapping fields of fire with their energy weapons." "Classic surface Navy thinking," Commander Cooper observed. "They still haven't adapted to true 3-dimensional warfare." "Show me the gravitational survey of the local space, Lieutenant." Mitchell's fingers danced across his darkened console. A new overlay appeared, showing the complex gravitational interactions between nearby asteroids and stellar bodies. There's a cluster of nickel-iron asteroids about 30,000 kilometers out. Their mass is creating some interesting gravitational eddies. Captain Stone leaned forward, her eyes gleaming in the dim light of the CIC. "Can you plot us a course through those gravitational shadows?" "Already on it, Captain." Mitchell's voice held a note of professional pride. "Using the asteroid's mass to bend our trajectory will let us approach from an angle their sensors won't expect. They'll be looking for conventional propulsion vectors." On the Infinite Wisdom, Sensor Officer Vexry monitored the sphere formation with growing frustration. "Supreme Commander, our coverage is complete. Any ship trying to move through our sensor net would have to." She froze, staring at her readings. "That's impossible. The gravitational readings in Sector 7 are fluctuating, but there's no mass displacement to account for." "Explain," Kexth demanded. They're using natural gravitational lenses to hide their movements," Vexry whispered, mandibles clicking in agitation. "The humans are treating space itself like an ocean, using its natural phenomena as cover." Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cut through the darkness of the Barracuda's CIC. "Target solutions plotted for their portside squadron. Rail batteries charged and ready. Kinetic packages primed for launch. Time to optimal firing position." Stone asked. 3 minutes, 17 seconds, Mitchell reported. "The gravitational slingshot will bring us within 2,000 kilometers of their formation. They won't see us until we're practically on top of them." Chief Engineer Taylor's voice came through the neural link. "Heat sinks at 60% capacity, Captain. The gravitational assist is actually helping us maintain our thermal camouflage. We're bleeding off excess energy into the natural space-time distortions." The Zaxri fleet maintained their sphere formation, energy weapons charged and shields at maximum power. Every sensor was focused outward, searching for the telltale signs of engine emissions or power signatures. None of them fought to look for a ship moving like a shadow through the natural flows of space-time itself. Launch in 5, Rodriguez counted down. 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark. The Barracuda's rail batteries fired in perfect sequence, their electromagnetic fields carefully contained to prevent detection. Depleted uranium shells crossed the void at relativistic speeds, each impact carrying the force of a tactical nuclear weapon. 3 Zaxri ships died before they could register the attack's origin point. By the void itself, one of Kex's commanders breathed, watching the destruction unfold. They're not just fighting us. They're fighting with space, using everything we ignored because it wasn't advanced enough. Captain Stone watched the alien fleet's formation break apart in panic. Status of their sensor coverage, Mitchell. Their sphere is compromised, Captain. They're creating gaps in their own defense network as they try to respond to our last attack vector. Mitchell's voice held a note of satisfaction. They still haven't figured out we're not bound by conventional movement patterns. Prepare for another attack run. Stone ordered. Let's remind them why humanity's first lessons in warfare came from beneath Earth's oceans. In space, just like in the depths, the most dangerous predator is the one that masters its environment rather than trying to overcome it. The destruction of the Zaxri flagship sent shockwaves through the remaining fleet. The infinite wisdom, pride of their expeditionary force, died in silence, split apart by precision strikes that seemed to come from the void itself. Supreme Commander Kex's final transmission cut off mid-syllable as kinetic rounds shattered his command center. On the emergency command ship Dawning Light, Acting Commander Vexry watched their tactical display with growing horror. 8 capital ships destroyed, 12 escorts reduced to drifting hulks, and still their sensors could not maintain a lock on the human vessel. Signal from an unknown source, her communications officer reported, voice trembling. It's being broadcast on all our command frequencies simultaneously. Captain Amanda Stone's voice filled their command center, calm and measured. This is Captain Stone of the United States Space Force vessel Barracuda. Your fleet has crossed recognized human territory boundaries and engaged in hostile actions against our space. This is your only warning. Lieutenant Rodriguez monitored the aliens' reactions through passive sensors. They're maintaining defensive positions, Captain, but their formation is ragged. Energy emissions suggest their shields are starting to fail from constant power drain. Play the archive, Commander Cooper, Stone ordered. Cooper nodded, initiating a data burst transmission to the alien fleet, sending them 20 years of boundary warnings and first contact protocols now. All the transmissions they ignored because they were sent by primitive radio waves. In the Dawning Light's command center, Vexry watched in growing dismay as their communication archives filled with human transmissions, mathematical sequences, cultural exchange protocols, territorial boundary markers, all broadcast consistently for 2 decades on simple radio frequencies. We dismissed them, her science officer whispered. The signal seemed too basic, too primitive to be from a spacefaring race. We thought they were random electromagnetic noise from an early industrial civilization. Your assessment of our technological level was flawed. Stone's voice continued. The U.S. Barracuda is a light patrol vessel designed for deep space reconnaissance and border security. The 7th Fleet will arrive in 48 hours. I suggest you consider your options carefully. Commander Cooper studied the tactical display. They're finally accessing the archive transmissions, Captain. Running them through their translation matrices now. Chief Engineer Taylor's voice came through the neural link. Heat sinks at 30% capacity. We can maintain stealth operations for another 12 hours if needed. On the Dawning Light, Vexry watched the translated human messages with growing dread. The humans hadn't just warned them. They'd provided detailed maps of their territory, complete protocols for peaceful first contact, and specific warnings about their military response protocols. Multiple power spikes, Rodriguez reported. They're trying to boost their long-range communications, attempting to contact their home fleet, most likely. Let them. Stone commanded. They need to understand exactly what they've stumbled into. Lieutenant Mitchell, Project our sensor ghost at coordinates marked 37. Let's give them something to look at while they think. The Barracuda's electronic warfare suite created a false sensor echo, a flickering shadow that drew the aliens' attention, while the actual ship maintained its perfect stealth posture. The psychological impact was calculated with precision, letting them see just enough to understand how blind they truly were. Acting Commander, the Dawning Light's tactical officer reported, analysis of the human vessel's attack pattern suggests they've been deliberately targeting our sensor arrays and communication systems. They could have destroyed our entire fleet, but they chose to blind and isolate us instead. Vexry's mandibles clicked in growing understanding. They're not just fighting us. They're teaching us a lesson about assumptions and arrogance. Signal from the human captain. Communications reported. Your species relies on energy shields, plasma weapons, and quantum drives. Stone's voice carried an edge of steel beneath its professional tone. You built your warfare doctrine around overwhelming force and advanced technology. We chose a different path. We mastered stealth, learned to work with the fundamental laws of physics rather than against them. The Barracuda doesn't need to be detected to destroy your fleet. The void itself is our ally. Senior Science Officer Mextol moved through the debris field in his environmental suit, scanning the twisted remnants of what had once been the pride of the Zaxxary fleet. The Dawning Light's recovery teams worked in silence, each member acutely aware of the human vessel lurking somewhere in the void around them. Another fragment from their kinetic weapons, Mextol reported, his voice tight with professional fascination. Pure tungsten, machined to perfection. No explosive payload, no energy core. They achieved this level of destruction using velocity alone. Inside the Barracuda's CIC, Lieutenant Rodriguez watched the alien salvage teams through passive sensors. They're being thorough, Captain. Collecting every piece of our ordnance they can find. Captain Stone nodded. Good. Let them learn. That's half the point of this engagement. Commander Cooper, status of our remaining weapons. 16 kinetic kill vehicles ready for launch. Rail batteries at 87% capacity. 4 mines still in optimal positions. Cooper studied his display. More than enough to finish their fleet if they force our hand. The Zaxxary scientific vessel, Relentless Inquiry, hung back from the main salvage operation, its sensors focused on analyzing the debris. Chief Researcher Texvan stared at the results with a mixture of disbelief and growing respect. These hull fragments, he mutated to his team. They're not just armor. The layered composition, it's designed to absorb energy rather than deflect it. Every aspect of their technology is built around stealth and efficiency. Analysis of their propulsion system. Another researcher added, mandibles clicking in excitement. The chemical rockets we detected. They're just one part of a multi-stage system. Cold gas thrusters for precise maneuvering, gravity assists for major course changes, and what appears to be a revolutionary heat management system. Chief Engineer Taylor monitored the alien scans through the Barracuda's passive sensors. They're starting to understand our thermal masking technology, Captain. Their scans are becoming more focused. Let them look, Stone replied. Every revelation drives home the point. The more they learn about our technology, the more they'll understand why their assumptions about primitive species were so dangerous. On the Relentless Inquiry, Texvan assembled his findings for Acting Commander Vexry. Their entire ship is a masterpiece of minimalist engineering. While we focused on generating more power for stronger shields, they perfected the art of becoming invisible to our sensors. The heat sinks, another scientist added, projecting a hologram of their analysis. They don't just dump excess energy into space. They store it in quantum wells, releasing it so gradually that it's indistinguishable from background radiation. The human ship is literally colder than the void around it. Lieutenant Mitchell's voice carried a note of pride. They're finally figuring out our navigational techniques, Captain. Their sensors are starting to track gravitational eddies and natural phenomena. Understanding comes too late, Commander Cooper observed. Their entire combat doctrine is built around the assumption that technological advancement means bigger energy signatures. They never considered that true advancement might mean leaving no signature at all. Mextel's team discovered another piece of human engineering, this one from one of their minds. The deployment system is ingenious, he reported. They designed it to mimic natural space debris perfectly. Even the metal composition was chosen to match local asteroid fragments. Their weapons, Texven continued his report to Vexry. They're not primitive at all. They're elegant. Kinetic kill vehicles require incredibly precise calculations, considering orbital mechanics, gravitational influences, and relativistic effects. The humans turned basic physics into a weapon more devastating than our energy weapons. Captain Stone watched the alien scientists piece together the truth about human military technology. They're learning the lesson every human naval officer learns on their first day. Space warfare isn't about who has the brightest energy weapons or the strongest shields. It's about mastering the environment itself. Signal from the dawning light, Rodriguez reported. They're requesting permission to recover more debris for analysis. Permission granted, Stone replied. Remind them that their research vessels must maintain their current positions. Any deviation will be considered hostile intent. She paused, watching the alien ships on her display. Let them study our technology. Every piece they analyze tells them the same story. Humanity didn't try to conquer the laws of physics. We embraced them. Acting Commander Vexry stood before the tactical display of the dawning light, watching the stars with growing apprehension. The human deadline approached, and still their long-range sensors detected nothing. No engine flares, no quantum distortions, no sign of the promised Seventh Fleet. Multiple anomalies detected, her sensor officer reported suddenly. Stellar light patterns showing micro-distortions at bearing 340, more appearing at mark 785. And, he paused, mandibles clicking rapidly. They're everywhere. Lieutenant Rodriguez monitored the alien fleet's reaction from the Barracuda's CIC. The Zaxri have noticed the gravitational lensing effects, Captain. Their sensors are going into overdrive trying to locate our fleet. Captain Stone allowed herself a small smile. Admiral Harrison always did have a flair for dramatic entrances. Status of the approaching fleet. 40 ships detected on passive sensors. Commander Cooper reported. They've been decelerating for the past 3 days, using minimal course corrections to maintain perfect stealth approach. The Zaxri won't see them until they're right on top of them. On the dawning light, panic began to spread as more distortions appeared. Magnification, Vexry ordered. Show me what's causing these anomalies. The tactical display zoomed in on one of the distortions. At first, there was nothing but stars. Then, slowly, a shadow began to take shape. Like a predator emerging from camouflage, the massive form of a human battleship became visible. Its hull was angular, designed to deflect sensor waves rather than energy weapons. No running lights, no visible weapons ports, just the promise of overwhelming force wrapped in absolute silence. By the eternal void, the sensor officer whispered. They're all around us. They've been there for hours, using the same stealth techniques as the Barracuda. But these ships, they're enormous. Chief Engineer Taylor's voice came through Stone's neural link. The fleets synchronized their heat dumps with our next attack window, Captain. When they purge their heat sinks, the thermal signature will be masked by the local stellar background radiation. More ships appearing, Rodriguez reported. HMS Silent Thunder, USN Ghost Walker, HMAS Shadow Boxer. The whole battle group is declocking simultaneously. Admiral Elizabeth Harrison's voice cut through all communication channels, her tone carrying the weight of absolute authority. This is Admiral Harrison of the United States Space Force 7th Fleet, to all Zaxri vessels. You have entered human space despite clear warnings and engaged in hostile actions against our forces. Your continued presence here will be considered an act of war. Vexry watched in mounting horror as more human ships materialized from the void. Each one was a masterpiece of stealth technology. their very existence challenging everything the Zaxri thought they knew about space warfare. Analysis of human fleet composition, her tactical officer reported, voice shaking. Detecting no energy shields, no plasma weapons. Their hulls they're built like the Barracuda. Every ship is designed to be invisible. Multiple targeting solutions acquired. Rodriguez announced in the Barracuda's CIC. The fleet has established a complete targeting grid. No Zaxri vessel can make an FTL jump without intersecting at least 3 firing solutions. Commander Cooper studied the tactical display. They're finally understanding, Captain. This isn't just about one ship anymore. They're seeing humanity's entire approach to warfare. On the Dawning Lights Bridge, Vexri received the final count of human vessels. 40 warships, each one as silent and deadly as the Barracuda, had surrounded her remaining fleet without triggering a single sensor alarm. The humans, her science officer said quietly, they didn't build their navy to overpower enemies with superior technology. They built it to hunt them. Every ship, from the smallest patrol vessel to their largest battleship, is designed to strike from perfect stealth. Captain Stone watched the alien fleet's disorganized reactions. Send to Admiral Harrison. The Barracuda stands ready to support fleet operations. All weapons systems primed and targeting solutions updated. The Zaxri are powering down their weapon systems, Rodriguez reported. Their energy signatures are dropping to minimal levels. I believe they're preparing to surrender, Captain. The formal surrender of the Zaxri Expeditionary Fleet took place in absolute silence. No energy weapons powered down. No shields flickered and died. The aliens had learned the value of electromagnetic quietness. Instead, they transmitted a simple text message on a narrowband frequency. We yield to human authority. Admiral Harrison stood on the bridge of her flagship, the USN Phantom Stalker, watching the alien vessels through passive sensors. Captain Stone, your after-action report has already caused quite a stir in the Admiralty. The Barracuda's engagement will be required study at the Academy. The patrol vessel achieved its purpose. Admiral, Stone replied through the secure channel. Though I suspect our demonstration of human military doctrine will have far-reaching consequences. In the Great Hall of the Zaxri High Command 3 cycles later, Acting Commander Vexri presented her findings to the assembled War Council. The holographic displays showed detailed analyses of human military technology, each revelation more profound than the last. We fundamentally misunderstood humanity's technological development, she explained, her voice carrying the weight of hard-learned wisdom. We saw their chemical rockets and projectile weapons as signs of primitiveness. In reality, they had achieved something far more advanced than our energy weapons and quantum drives. Lieutenant Rodriguez monitored the diplomatic transmissions from the Barracuda's CIC. They're disseminating our technical specifications throughout their fleet, Captain. Every ship in their navy is being retrofitted with passive sensors and thermal masking systems. The greatest victory, Commander Cooper observed, isn't just defeating an enemy. It's making them question everything they thought they knew about warfare. Chief Engineer Taylor's voice carried a note of professional satisfaction through the neural link. They're particularly interested in our heat sink technology. Their engineers can't believe we managed to achieve perfect thermal camouflage using basic thermodynamic principles. In the War Council, Vexri continued her presentation. The humans didn't try to overcome the laws of physics like we did. They embraced them. Their ships don't fight against the void. They become one with it. The Barracuda wasn't just a warship. It was a testament to humanity's different path to advancement. Multiple research vessels requesting permission to study our primitive chemical propulsion systems, Rodriguez reported with a slight smirk. Seems they've developed a new appreciation for efficient simplicity. Captain Stone watched the alien diplomatic efforts with measured satisfaction. Humanity's first introduction to the galactic community wasn't through peaceful contact, but they learned something far more important: the danger of assumptions and the price of arrogance. The Zaxri High Command reviewed footage from the battle. studying how the human vessels used gravitational lenses and stellar phenomena as tactical advantages. Their best tacticians marveled at warfare doctrine that treated space itself as an ally rather than an obstacle to be overcome. The Barracuda's engagement forced us to confront our own technological hubris. Vexry concluded, "We built ever more powerful energy weapons, while they perfected the art of never being seen. We focused on stronger shields, while they developed ways to bypass defensive systems entirely. We thought we were advancing, but we were only becoming more visible, more predictable." Admiral Harrison's final transmission to the retreating Zaxrid fleet was brief but profound. Remember this lesson. Humanity doesn't need overwhelming force to defend its territory. We simply understand that true power lies in mastering the fundamental nature of space itself. In the cycles that followed, the encounter changed the face of galactic warfare. Species that once relied on energy weapons and shields began studying human military doctrine. The terms silent running and void stalker entered alien military lexicons. Ship designs across known space shifted toward stealth and efficiency rather than raw power. The U.S. Barracuda became more than a legend. It became a symbol of humanity's unique approach to technological advancement. In the great naval museums of a dozen species, holographic displays tell the story of a single patrol vessel that changed galactic warfare forever, teaching all spacefaring races that true evolution means working with the laws of physics, not against them. Signal from Zaxry High Command. Rodriguez reported months later. They're requesting permission to establish a permanent diplomatic mission. They want to learn from us, Captain. Stone smiled. Permission granted. After all, the best way to prevent future conflicts is to help them understand why we chose our path. Sometimes the quietest voice carries the most profound message.